didn't like what's with Islam and the whole thing with I have it written here about here it is like not being able to like drink or like listen to music and a bunch of other things like that, like with that whole thing, right? But the Quran,
none of that's
song. So would that not be considered music?
No, none of that matters, by the way, because all of these are moral questions that you're asking right now. And moral questions are based on a foundation of where do you get your morality from. So these are all based on whether a religion is true or not. Nobody needs to argue every moral command, because if we already prove the basis that they are from God, then nobody can argue with God. So the question should never be like, what is this moral? Why does it command this moral specific thing? What is the explanation for that? Because that has an assumption that we are able to explain every command of God rationally. And that would necessitate that we know what God, wants in every aspect. Of course, we don't. So there are certain things that God will command, and they could be just for the sake of submission. That there are things that we desire, we like, but God is testing, we will submit to his command over following what we desire or not. And this can be the case. Doesn't need to have a specific rational explanation, because this life is a test. But like I said, these moral questions, all of them are hinging on the reality of where do you get your morality from to begin with. And drinking alcohol is not unique to Islam. The Bible says the same thing about not getting drunk. But whether it is Islam, Christianity, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Even if you go to an atheist and tell him, is drinking alcohol a beneficial thing for your life? I don't think they will say yes. Even if they like alcohol, they will probably be honest enough to tell you that this is not beneficial. Why? Number one, if we talk about scientifically, alcohol, no amount of alcohol, and the Daily Mail and many different places published a scientific study that was very recent, refuting the previous study, a little bit of alcohol wine is good for your heart. That's a fake study that was there so people can, buy wine, obviously. So that's the whole reason the study was there. But these recent studies show zero amount of alcohol is good for you. It shows 0.0. No amount of alcohol is good for you, for your body at all, in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, it's bad for your skin. It gives you kidney failure. It gives you cancerous cells. It's one of the main causes, first 4 or 5 causes of cancer in the world, drinking alcohol. So for you as a human, generally, it's not good in any way, shape, or form. Of course, you lose your consciousness, and then you start behaving in the most disgusting manner towards human beings around you, and you don't know what you're doing. So when it comes to you as an individual, is the few things I mentioned. Now, when it comes to your community, it's completely harmful in every way. You have all of these cases of domestic abuse, which happens, like watch England, when England loses a football match, what happens in the household to all of these women, of these drunk guys. They're already fighting in the street, but imagine when they go to their wives and home, what they do. And there's a huge study by the UN called Women Abused Every Day, Everywhere. I'd recommend you watch that, read that, and I'll show you the amount of abuse that women go through in the household. And this is in Europe and America. It has nothing to do with anywhere else in the world. This is the biggest study the UN done on this topic. Now, you have domestic abuse, you have drinking and driving, going through the roads and hitting people. You have abuse of children, of drunk parents. These cases are not just 1 or 2 cases. You have the biggest crime.
I've seen. Oh, sorry.
The Metropolitan Police, for example, they say 60 to 70% of the knife crime that happens in the UK, for example, are people who are under influence, drugs or alcohol. So I don't think anyone can rationally argue that alcohol is good for the person or the community. They just have to be not honest, sincere people. So, of course, Islam prohibits that. Now, someone might come and say, I'll tell you the basic, responses which are lame. They will say, oh, what about I drink responsibly, a little bit of wine in the evening or whatever. We just already established that's not healthy for your body, number one. Number two, how does a person become an alcoholic? Nobody's born a baby and he starts like drinking the whole bottle, from his mother's womb, coming out with a bottle of alcohol. You drink gradually. Your body naturally becomes tolerant to alcohol. It develops tolerance to alcohol. And with time, you drink more because you have more tolerance. So you become a stronger drinker. So you need to drink more. And then when sad, difficult events happen to your life, you drink even more because you want to forget. And this is how a person gradually becomes an alcoholic. And the religious commands are for everyone, for the community. It's not about you. Religion is not about selfish. Oh, look, I like you, you're a good guy. So God will say, I like you, you can drink. The rest of the people can. No. The laws are for the community, and God knows the nature of every human being. So, like I said, this is not something that anyone can argue, like rationally, that is beneficial for anyone, for sure.
Okay, yeah, I see that. I see how it's not like beneficial, but if it were to be right that the Quran is like great and like leading and like being equal to people and like both men and women, then how is it that even so like the Middle East has like almost one of like the highest rates of like violence against women? If the Quran is like supposed to make men and women equal, it has like it's not even like where the US is like comparable. So like how is that still like a thing?
Well, again, by the way, that statement is not true. Which studies that you have that shows that in the Middle East is higher than anywhere else in the world, or whatever? That's not true, by the way.
It's like it said it was like one of the highest. Like there and Africa are pretty up there.
Well, Africa is not necessarily a Muslim. It's not a Muslim country, as you know, obviously.
North Africa.
There are no. I don't think that is true. This study, we need to look at it. How many people did they conduct? I brought you a study in the UN, which I believe like nearly 100,000 women. This is the biggest study done by the UN, United Nations. I'm not talking about some random study where someone surveyed 10 women and they came to a conclusion that fits their narrative. So if you present something, you need evidences for it. And I looked at that. That's not true. Number one. But there is a projection of this idea, of course, in the West, because the West wants to convince themselves that the people in Africa and the people in the Muslim countries are a bunch of barbarics that need to be educated and enlightened. And they are the white savior that is going to come and do that. And you should know that more than anyone else, I would say. So they have this, they have this narrative that they want to come to us with. But in reality, when you look at true studies, that's not true in any way, shape, or form. People can do the research on that. But again, even if there was cases of abuse or whatever, cases, right? It's definitely not one of the highest. But if there's cases of abuse, that cannot be correlated to the religious text because there are good and bad people everywhere. There's 2 billion Muslims in the world. Quarter of the population of the planet, you can say, if not third, very soon, of the population of the planet are Muslims. So when you have some people somewhere doing something wrong, obviously that's going to be the case. When you have this amount of people existing on the planet. Now the Quran, the Prophet explicitly in one narration said, do not hit the women servants of Allah. So he prohibited that. The Prophet explicitly prohibited any severe hitting, any hitting the face, any breaking bones, or any severe hitting of a woman. The Prophet ﷺ, his wife said the Prophet never hit any woman. And he's the example for us that the Quran tells us to follow. So if the religion teaches us that, and some random idiot goes and does something wrong, of course, there's no correlation there between the religion and an action of a group of bad apples somewhere.
I was thinking that. I found it. I found the study that I was looking at. The one it says that in the Middle East and North Africa. So for the Middle East and North Africa, it's 45% of women experience.
By who is the study?
This is the Action Aid from the UK. It's a UK article from 2022.
That's an article, so that's not a scientific study. Who conducted the study? Who did the survey? How many people were surveyed? I can write you an article today and I'll tell you the 100% of Western women get abused. That doesn't mean anything. Which organization went there and surveyed the women? And what were the questions asked? What was the number of people? All of these things are available on the UN website. Like, for example, for the study I gave you.
I guess this one doesn't have that on there specifically.
Do you see now my problem? My problem is that a lot of people, are not familiar with primary sources, are not familiar with proper researching. And a lot of people have a confirmation bias. They would accept information that is in line with their bias. Their bias already, they're grown up watching media and hearing all the news. Their bias already believes this is true. So if something says what I believe, of course I like it. I'm not going to go investigate and actually see where these studies done. And that's why I told you that was not true. And there is no such studies that exist that demonstrates any of that. But there are studies, clear, like the one I gave you. Nobody can refute a UN study because the UN is not obviously a Muslim source. So nobody can refute a UN study which surveys tens of thousands of women in the Western America. Nobody can refute that. So if anyone has issues with abuse, I would say they should start with the West. Before they talk about any country, right?
Yeah,
plus, I never said
it was the Middle East, so I said it also was the Middle East from what I saw. And
which is not true.
From everything I see here, it shows that even Muslims tend to do a lot of crime and stuff. But I guess based on the study, based on what you just said, that's literally just not true, I guess.
No sources, no numbers, no amount of people who were surveyed. Anyone can write anything. And this is just a random website. I told you today, I'll go write you, I'll get it on the top of Google as well if I pay Google. and then I'll have whichever I want to say, I'm going to say. People can lie. Anybody can lie. People need to understand how research is done. Research is not done by just some random person on Google writing something. That's not how you do research. You do research by investigating the process, the methodology of the research that took place, the number of people that participated, the questions that were asked, and the locations, and the organization that conducted the survey, because it could be a biased survey that is lying about the numbers. So once you do that, then you come to a conclusion. So I don't know if you're researching now, trying to find that. That's not how research is done as well. In the middle of a conversation.
No, I was trying to see.
How do you do that?
It doesn't have the questions on it, which I didn't even.
It will not. You can check. It will not. But it will not have this. Yeah. Look, I know it will not because it's a lie. So I know that for a fact. So okay, coming back to where we were. So I said, if anyone has an issue with amount of abuse or any of that, they need to start with their book. Also, let me highlight something. Islam doesn't say men and women are equal. That's not true. Men and women are equal in their accountability and responsibility towards God. Meaning, if they sin, they're punished equally. If they do a good deed, they're rewarded equally. In the eyes of the Creator, they're equal. For sure. So this general equality exists. But there are different roles for men and women in society as well. Like, we don't believe like the woman should go out and work and feed the household and the man should stay home changing the diapers. That's not the Islamic point of view, for example. So there are roles in society. And these roles are based on the nature that God has created us in. Right? Yeah. So in Islam, we need to highlight the difference between the word equality, because equality can have this assumption that they're treated exactly the same way in every aspect. But men and women are not the same. If men and women are not the same, then treating them the same makes no sense. Their psychology is different. Their biology is different. Everything about them is different. So they would require different things that suits them. They complete one another. It's not about fight, like it is in the West with feminism and red pill and all of this stuff. It's not about fighting. It's about completing each other as a husband and a wife, or a man or a woman. So Islam has roles that everyone fulfills his duties and responsibility, and there is a complete harmony in the household as a result of that. Now, again, as I said, all of these moral questions, look, I can easily give you rational responses that will refute anything you bring up, and will give you a rational response. But any moral questions, like I said, they would come back to the position I said to you. So let me ask you this question. Where do you bring your morality from? Why is it good to say any of the things that you think that are good? Where are you bringing the source that we can say this is actually objectively good? What is your source?
Usually I pull it from, I use objective sources. Like the article said that it came from like the UK and that they did like... That's
not an objective source.
It says that
that's not a moral objective source. I'm talking about morality, meaning like how to determine. Yeah. An article will give you information. I'm talking about how do you know this information is good or bad? These actions are good or bad? How do you determine moral actions are good, morally good or morally bad? What is the source?
I mean, mine comes from the Bible. I mean, it pretty clearly states.
Yours comes from. Are you sure? Have you read the Bible?
I mean, I've read the majority of it. I haven't read all of it.
Let me ask you a question. If I say in Islam, I want you to tell me your opinion. If I say in Islam teaches that if a woman does not cover her head, we should shave her hair. What do you think about that?
That's pretty insane. I think that pretty much affirms why I don't follow Islam at that point.
That's why you wouldn't follow Islam, right?
Yeah, that sounds insane.
Okay, if I said to you that Islam teaches that the woman doesn't have any right for divorce. So even if the husband beats her or whatever, maybe if he cheats on her, maybe, but she doesn't have any ground for divorce. And if she's divorced, she cannot marry anyone else. What would you think if Islam teaches that?
That makes, okay, so see, now I see why the article said that the Middle East had the higher rate of violence. It's because of that, isn't it? It's
because of these teachings, right? What if I say to you the Quran, wait, step by step, what if I tell you the Quran teaches that women should remain silent? They shouldn't teach a man because a man is their higher authority. They should remain quiet in places of worship. And because the man was formed first, he's greater than them. Okay? And they are lesser beings from that sense. He is the head of them. And they need to be quiet and not teach a man or assume authority over a man. What would you think about that as well? On top of what I said to you. I want your honest opinion. Unfiltered, honest opinion.
Completely, I personally refute that. but I remember seeing something like that in the Bible specifically. And if they both say that, then I can't really refute that.
Oh, no, but the other things as well you didn't like about the covering the head and all of these things. You said that's why you would not follow Islam, right?
That explains why the Middle East has a higher rate of violence, like the study said. So I think that pretty much follows why I won't follow it. Perfect.
Do you know I was just quoting the Bible to you and the Quran doesn't say any of that? You see how you said to me, look, I'll tell you, this is a problem with all due respect to you. This is a problem with overwhelming majority of Christians today. They don't know what their book says. And all of these things I mentioned to you, none of them are in the Quran. Quran, yes, Allah commands women that is pious and modest to cover your head. Allah doesn't say anything about shaving the head. However, Corinthians says that. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 6 in particular, if you'd like to check. Everything I just told you about, like, for example, not be able to divorce at all unless it's adultery. And if you're divorced, you're not allowed to marry anyone. That's in Christianity. In Islam, you don't need only divorce. You can divorce for, let's say you're not physically attracted to your husband. You can divorce. For that simple reason. For abuse, domestic abuse, for any of these problems, you can get divorced. But in Christianity, the religion that you're saying you're following, and you're saying, I wouldn't follow Islam if that was in Islam, right? Islam doesn't say the woman should remain quiet. All I told you about women remaining quiet and the man is the head, and all of that is the New Testament. Corinthians is the New Testament. Everything I'm telling you right now about divorce, this is Jesus' statements in Matthew. All of this is the New Testament. Don't worry, I don't need to go to the Old Testament because I know Christians would say, oh, the Old Testament was like this. If I go to the Old Testament, it's worse, my friend. I didn't even go to the Old Testament yet. But you see the problem. Christians, they can point the finger. It's very easy. You know, you live in a glass house. You point the finger, you're throwing rocks. Have no clue what your book says. Most Christians. So in reality, you don't know, but you're not following the Bible. You're following liberalism. The real moral teachings are coming for you is from what they taught you in school and what they told you in the West and what you hear in the media and what your community tells you. And that's liberalism. None of that is an objective moral source that comes from God. So I would recommend every Christian, to open their book first, read what it says about women, because it couldn't say anything worse, in my opinion. And then see if they can talk about anything that says in the Quran about Islam. You know the Quran, what Islam... Now let me give you the contrast of what Islam teaches about women, not what Christianity teaches, which we just said. Now, what does Islam teach about women? Islam teaches, like the Prophet told us, النساء شقائق الرجال, that men and women are generally equal. There's no statement like this in the Bible. The Prophet told us that النساء شقائق الرجال. The Prophet told us the best of you are the best to their wives. The best of you are the best to their wives. And I'm the best to my wife. And that's why I told you, the Prophet was the example for us. He didn't beat his women. He treated them in the utmost respect and honor. This is what Islam teaches. Prophet said, if you have 2 daughters and you take care of them, they will be a veil for you from the hellfire. The mother, the Prophet ﷺ said, a man came to him and said, who should I love and be good to the most after you? He said, your mother. He said, then who? He said, your mother. He said, then who? He said, your mother. Then he said, then who? He said, then your father. A woman in every level in Islam is taken care of. When you get married to your wife, she doesn't need to lift a finger and work. You have to work. You have to provide for the house. You provide clothing. You provide sustenance. You do all of that. And if she works, her money is her money. There is no religion that brought honor to women the way Islam did. Women before Islam, they were just objects used for fornication and all of that. Islam came, they were not allowed inheritance. Islam allowed them inheritance. They were not allowed to own property. Islam is the first religion to do that, to allow them to own property. When in Western countries, they were not allowed to own property. They were not allowed to be inherited. So nobody can come and point any finger at the treatment of women in Islam, especially if he's a Christian, Christian or atheist, or any other religion or faith. Nobody can come and say anything about the teachings of Islam. So my recommendation to you is to stick to the statement you made. You said, I wouldn't follow Islam. That's why I don't follow Islam, or I wouldn't follow Islam. Then stick to the same statement about your Christianity. Then you should say, I'm not going to be a Christian because these are the teachings in my book. Shouldn't that be a consistent position?
I mean, I guess I didn't know it said that.
There you go. Is there anything else I can do for you?
No, I guess that's it, kind of. Yeah, I told my friend that if you refuted all my questions, that I would convert. So I guess now I have to do that. I didn't think you would actually do it. So But
okay, خلاص, let's do it then, inshallah. Are you sure you're doing this?
Yeah. I bought this today. I told him that if you were able to refute all my questions, that I would convert, but I didn't think you'd actually do it. So
no problem, no worries. Okay, never say never, as they say, right? All right.
Yeah,
so,
I guess
to become Muslim is a very simple process. It is testifying that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah, God, and to testify that Prophet Muhammad is his messenger and servant. We'll say it in English first, and then we'll say it in Arabic. Say after me, I testify.
I testify.
There's nothing worthy of worship.
There's nothing worthy of worship.
Except Allah.
Except Allah.
And I testify.
And I testify.
That Prophet Muhammad.
That Prophet Muhammad.
Is his messenger.
Is his messenger.
And servant.
And servant.
Okay, we'll say the same thing, but in Arabic slowly. Say, Ashhadu.
Ashhadu.
Allah.
Allah.
Ilaha.
Ilaha.
Illa Allah.
Illa Allah.
Wa ashhadu.
Washhadu.
Anna.
Anna.
Muhammadan.
Muhammadan.
Rasul Allah.
Rasul Allah.
That's it, my brother. You are officially, alhamdulillah, a Muslim. And I'll tell you something. It's a respectable position when you are sincere towards the truth. You know, many people, their arrogance comes in the picture, their ego comes in, you know, I could not be, how am I wrong? I can never be wrong. I have to be true. But to accept the truth after the truth is presented to you is more admirable than anything else. So I ask Allah to bless you for that. I ask Allah to keep you firm in the truth. You said you tried to go to the mosque with your friends. So inshallah, they seem like very good friends, you know, trying to bring you closer to come closer to God and worship God. So I would recommend you keep good company with them. And inshallah, take everything step by step, like learning how to pray and all of that. And I have an email. You're welcome to message me there. Send me your details. And I can connect you with our team if you like. If you have any other questions, you can ask them there. This is my email. So if you take a screenshot, and you're welcome to send me any questions you have, or your information, like your phone number, where you live, etc. And I will connect you to our team. And as I said, if you have any questions or anything like that, you're welcome to ask. Is there anything? I'm very, very happy for you. I ask Allah to keep you firm in the truth. I know it's a big decision that you took. That's why I asked you if you were sure. But trust me, there isn't anything that anyone can come up with that shows that Islam is not the truth. And there's a million things I can come up with to show people that not only Christianity, but any other faith is not the absolute truth from God.
Okay. Yeah, I really didn't think that the Bible said any of that stuff. So that's kind of crazy that even. I mean, I can't say that I'm not going to follow Islam if Islam says that, and then the Bible says that, and then I continue following. That's just not right.
It's not sincere. So. It's not sincere. It's not consistent. Yes, and sincerity, like I said, it's a very admirable characteristic. And the reason I told you the Quran is because I wanted your raw reaction. Because remember, I told you about confirmation bias. If I told you it's the Bible, then you'll instantly try to find the reason to respond. But when you realize, okay, the confirmation bias is not going to come out, you'll give your objective raw opinion when I tell you if this is what the Quran says, right? So it's very important. And I do appreciate you coming on. A lot of people say, you know, they're very happy for you. And like I said, you keep company with your friend. Inshallah, keep company with your friends. Some people are saying, why is he not smiling? It's like you're putting a gun on your head or something.
It's just so crazy.
You're shocked. You're in shock. I get it.
That just doesn't make sense. That just doesn't make sense.
You are in shock. I get it. Yeah. Look, there are a few videos on my channel where I talk about that and give references. But even when I upload this video, you'll be able to see the references of the Bible and everything. And even basic Google search after our talk, you will see everything I just told you in the Bible. So, all right, Don, unless I can do anything else for you, please, like I said, make sure to email me and I will connect you with our team. And if you got any questions or anything like that, then we will have a chat. All right?
Yeah, I'll do that now.